My challenge when I first came to Canada was I came in December when it was lots of snow on the ground, and it was very hard for me not to see people for hours and days at a time because I'm from Jamaica and there's people on the street 24/7. So that was a little bit hard to adjust to. Having a newborn at that time, she was born December 19th and I came December 1st. So that was a little bit different because back home I had lots of family and relatives and I would have a lot of help.
Just before a week before my 20th birthday, I found out that I was pregnant with my first child. And, I wasn't really too sure how I felt about it. And then I was 12 weeks pregnant when he sent me this text message telling me not to call one of his cell phones. So I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna call it. So I called it and this girl answered. And she's like, oh, why are you calling my boyfriend's cell phone? I was pretty devastated. Pregnant with his kid and some other girls, his girlfriend. So it was pretty rough time.
When I moved to Winnipeg, I guess it was 1999, my first child was 4 years old, and I was living in a little basement suite on Furby Street, and I knew a few people, but I really didn't have any supports. I didn't have any family in the city. And my little girl was in nursery school, and a home visitor came by. And, she saw that, we didn't have much, and, we were doing the best that we could with what we had, but really didn't have any supports as far as, finding childcare or things to do.
What are the effects of poverty, and how does it play out? And if we aren't taking care of everyone, there's going to be things that are not so nice to see all the time.
People, sometimes you see someone asking you for $1, and they really don't have $1, and you think, wow, this is a real people, right?
Shortly after I arrived there, I was crossing St. Mary's and Dakota at that time, I think, and there was a yield. And this big truck comes along and he stopped so I couldn't cross the yield. But then when I crossed, I didn't wave or I didn't say thank you or anything. I just assumed, okay, he's being, that's what he's supposed to do. And so I crossed and he yelled out the window, oh, you're welcome, nigger. I don't want to say that word because back home we get slapped for it.
I see newcomers here thinking that they live in Canada and it's the land of gold, to find out that it's not a warm and fuzzy place lots of time, and we as Canadians like to deny that there's anything like racism.
I lived right above the caretaker on wood floors with 2 kids under 2. She called the police on me because my son was crying. They came, they're like, well, babies cry, what do you want us to do? And I'm going to school full time with 2 kids under 2. My son was only 13 weeks old. He was a month old when I started school, so I'm tired. I don't drink, I don't do drugs. That aside, a couple weeks later, I get this letter from the head office saying that, all these reasons why they're, this is a warning, and if I get another one, they're gonna kick me out. What really kind of got me was the way they wrote it was, the baby was crying, the police were called, and they found Ms. McKay unresponsive, as if I was passed out or something. And it was, whatever. So, yes or no, we ended up eventually we got evicted because my kids played too loud.
Well, I think discrimination is discrimination. And it's more about how do you provide supports for people. It isn't about judging people. It isn't about sitting there and saying, babies having babies. It's like, okay, we have a young mom here. How do we support young moms? How do we value that they have something to offer? So I think it's time for all of us to maybe sit there and start looking at and really believing in that it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah, my little girl was having some problems. I guess socially she was a biter. And she would kind of bite for no reason at all. She wouldn't have to, be angry or tired or anything. She would just come up and, bite you on the arm. So I really needed some help in the parenting area. I was, I guess, about 25, 26 when we moved here. And, I had babysat before, but I had never been in charge of a child, 24 hours a day. So I would get pretty frustrated myself. And I had, been in sort of a difficult relationship with somebody and was, quite lonely and sad. So it was really important for me to find, something to do and a place to be other than kind of locked in my apartment in, the dead of winter in Winnipeg.
Oh, here comes Miss Natalie.
Yeah.
Day to day, when you see the families come in and the stories that they tell, it's just not good. And we assume that because they are a single parent, that they're not good parents. And I honestly believe that every parent that has ever come through the doors, and I've been here since the conception of Wolseley Family Place, they love their children. And poverty is the real issue. And let's talk about the effects of poverty and how poverty affects families.
We had a guy that used to come here, and his name was David. He had 3 children. When he first started coming here, he had 1 boy, and then during his time here, he had another little boy and a little girl, and this was last year. He went to school, took his nursing. As far as I knew, he got his degree and everything, and then we heard that he committed suicide, so that was really rough.
We dealt with a murder where this guy came to us every week, and he ended up receiving residential money, and he wanted us to store it and put it in a bank account for him, and then when he came, he would withdraw small amounts. The long short of it was that I guess they were at a drinking party, and he ended up being murdered. And he was a very wonderful, gentle man. Like, he just was a very kind man. So I sit there and think again when I look at society and why are we not taking care of all people? We've dealt with rape. We've dealt with suicides. We've dealt with murder. This is the reality in which we work. Well, the evolution, it started initially with the Sisters of the Misericord, and the sisters came here in the early 1900s, and their goal and mission was to take care of single moms with children. And it started with Villa Rosa and Misericordia Health Center, which was a hospital at that time. And as a hospital, it gave birth to the babies. They went to Villa Rosa for 6 months to a year, and then after that, where did they go? So they thought they had to have another place. So then came Wolseley Family Place. Any new program that we put in, we have an advisory from all walks of life and all sorts of community. We need assistance from everybody. We've had the involvement of the churches. We've worked with West Broadway. We've worked with Ray. We've worked with all type of organization. And last year I counted over 150 organizations that we had partnered with. And so over the years, it doesn't matter if it's the Conservatives, the Liberals, or the NDP, we've received money from all of them, and it's about supporting us throughout time. And we've been very successful with working with all of the governments. We wouldn't exist if it wasn't for the participants. When we first started, you started off with 10 or 15, and now you have like 3,500 that come in a year, like individual families.
Most of the times upstairs, yeah, or in the auditorium, depends. Sometimes we get bumped and then it has to be here in the multi-purpose room. So.
The resources that they have really fit into exactly what I needed at the time. You know, and it almost seemed a little bit magical.
January of 2010, I think, I started coming here, and pretty much every day since.
So I started coming, and then eventually I started coming like more and more and more, and then I was just coming every day, and then we were kind of a permanent fixture shortly after.
I think people come back because of our philosophy around inclusion. We also have used Broken Legs philosophy around what makes a whole person. Under his sort of belief system, there's mastery. And mastery sort of means like they have capacities, they have abilities. We do not see them as a deficit. We see them that they have strengths and that they're good human beings. So that in itself allows people to be, reach their best potential.
It's a place where you can truly be yourself. Like, you don't have to get up and think, oh, I have to put on all this makeup. Like, you can do it if you want to, but if you don't, no one cares, and I don't care either. So you can just bring your natural beauty here.
We watch all the time the women supporting each other in so many ways. They'll babysit each other's kids. If somebody's hurt, they're out there to reach. It feels like a community. I think that's what they would say, that this is a place where sometimes in the outside world, they're not valued as human beings, but when they come in here, I'm hoping they will always be valued as the person and who they are, and for their own uniqueness and specialty that they have.
I've told Sharon a million times, this is my second home. And I wish it was open 24 hours a day, honestly.
Having Wolseley Family Place here to take care of my kid while I study is such a blessing, and really amazing.
You know, at Wolseley Family Place, it's mothers with their children who take care of the children, and you know, that's something that like we all have in common.
But like for the laundry and the breakfast club and all those other things, I love it. I love it. I wish there was a million more of those.
This place covers the bases, you know, and because it's welcoming to all kinds of different people, you get to know people from all over the world here, and you get to know their stories. It's pretty amazing.
It's kind of like we've adopted another family, and it's really nice.